2, where we're going to start looking at outlining and drafting. So on our agenda today, we, as usual, are going to look at our topic outcomes. We're going to look at what we need to read and review, our biblical perspective, and then we're going to take a glance at those assignments. So our topic outcomes for this week are to move from the planning to the pre-writing step of the writing process. So we're going to be looking at different features of that and how they work together. We're going to be thinking. So think about that idea, not just doing, but thinking about our argument, our purpose, and our goals. We want to write a thesis that captures the main idea of our essay, and we want to write an outline as a plan for where we want our essay to go, as well as beginning the draft of that essay. So all of that sounds a lot like sort of set in stone steps, but these are all about thinking about the concepts and starting these processes. What we write here for our thesis may not look at all like what we actually end up with, but right now we're practicing those steps. We're saying, what could that look like? And we're using it as a directional aid. For this week, I included Ecclesiastes 9:10 because it is about planning. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. For in the realm of the dead, where you are going, there's neither working nor planning, nor knowledge nor wisdom. The key point here being planning and knowledge and wisdom. We are practicing these things and we're going to see where they take us. So, as it says in our introductory information, that by the end of this course, we'll notice that many of these steps flow naturally and almost effortlessly from one to the other. And so we are practicing these skills and seeing where they take us. But remember those key points here. We're not saying that we're finalizing them. We're saying that we're practicing. They are things that we work at and we start to see what really works for us. So a question I will ask you repeatedly is, how did that particular part work for you? Did it make sense for you? Do you like what you're taking from that? Because I don't want you to feel like you have to adopt every single method and strategy. Instead, I want you to look at those. I want you to look at how you generally do tasks, and then I want you to take the ones that are the most natural and the most effortless for you and grow in those. So, yes, you are adding to and increasing those skills, but you're also building upon what you already have and do. So our reading and viewing is quite a longer list. This isn't even quite all of them, but they aren't terribly long each within and of themselves. So there are a lot, but get in there and start exploring all these different tips and supports. And of course, all of the information is also available in the full course shell, which I need to update because we've updated the class. The biblical perspective uses Colossians 4:6 about grace and seasoning what we do with salt so that we may know how to answer everyone, which I think is such a good point to bring up with writing because we are constantly growing. And our aim is to not have to say, but what I meant was. Instead, we want it to be clear and professional and strong and obvious to everyone what we mean and what we're saying. And that's going to take time and effort and strength. And also check out this cool blog linked here and in the course shell here at CCU about grace and truth. So our assignments this week, remember how we are building all the time. We are not changing from our topic proposal. We're not completely shifting gears. We are growing each time. So this week we are tackling that essay outline and our rough draft, and we are continuing that writing process and that thesis practice from the discussion and from session 1. Whoops, I shouldn't have left that one in there. And we'll fix that one while we're here. An outline is not a final statement. So our discussion, we are looking at the writing process and thesis practice. So this particular slide is all about the writing process. We are looking at how confident we are, what kind of habits we have, and what we have produced in the past and where that is taking us. We want to explore not a set yes or no, but what do we think about a thesis statement? Do we have sort of features in place to help us? Or do we feel like we are tackling that and doing really well? What sort of pieces do we have here and what can we share with others? also, we are looking at that thesis practice. We're going to practice writing it. We're going to explain whether or not we like the thesis statement and how confident we are, because a thesis is about practice. My favorite building block is superlative plus stance because X, Y, and Z. So I like to use a superlative like the best, the worst, the most important, the least important, the most valuable. And then present what I believe and explain where I'm going to take my essay. So as you can imagine, these building blocks can get moved around, they can get edited. Sometimes we may have 4 key points that we want to share. Sometimes we may have just 2. So really it's about a starting point that quickly becomes something else. So here's an example. The best, so there's my superlative, and then I'm going to provide a stance, an idea that I want to explore. The best part of learning APA is realizing how interconnected all formatting styles are, because, and this is where I'm going to get to my 3 paragraph topics, I'm going to discuss X, Y, and Z in that order in the body paragraphs. Because X is APA in Chicago use the Oxford comma. Y is going to be all styles, write out numbers 0 through 10. And Z is going to be APA and MLA require each resource within the text, unlike Chicago. So I have 3 ideas to get going. This is just a quick example, but you get the concept. And a lot of times I'll start with sort of thinking about it in this process, but then I end up writing something that doesn't quite look like that. And that's what I want you to know. Thesis statements are a thing that we practice, that we explore, that we have like a starting point, but then we can go any direction from there. And what you first share may not be what you finally share. Please remember that part about every part of the writing process. And of course, one of my favorite infographics again. When we write a report, we just inform and we give a general discussion. And a lot of times that's what we ask of you from elementary school all the way to high school. Now we are shifting gears because you are professionals, you are adults, and we are switching to saying, I don't want you to just find out what others are saying. I want you to gather this information, argue a point. Like a moment ago, I said the best. The reason I use the best is because other people could say, well, I like 2 of your points, but I feel like a third one should be made that's different. And then that means we're having a conversation, we're having a discussion. So we want arguable, not in the sense of a negative thing, but as in, oh, I'm presenting these 3 best ideas, but you think these are the 3 best ideas. And then we discuss, we debate, we articulate, we explore. And at the end of it, we all come out with more knowledge and insight. So we are gathering that data and supporting our position. We are analyzing and interpreting it and sharing it with our readers. We are giving our perspective and conclusion because we are the professionals. And so as you're reading, I want you to start thinking about that you are now that professional, and a professional knows what they're talking about and they know what they're sharing and what they want to share. Obviously, that's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but I want you to be aware of that shift from just talking about, oh, I read that in an encyclopedia, or I read that and that's interesting, to that's interesting, but I want you to know this. I want you to learn this. I want you to process this. So in our essay outline, we are looking at outlining, which is super different than the drafting part. And we are just starting this based on our topic, starting to look at that feedback I'm giving you on that Monday or Tuesday, and starting to share these ideas, like what's happening with what we want to explore. These are some key questions we're looking at, like what's our purpose? Are we reporting information or asserting a position? See, remember back to that infographic. Who's our audience? What do they expect out of that essay? We have to navigate that space and create a bridge. What we want to say and what other people want to know about sometimes completely intersect and it's perfect, but other times we're navigating that space and bringing those 2 points clearer and more completely together. So you are taking your idea from your outline, you are taking your idea from your topic proposal, what you're looking at in your session 2 discussion, and then you are building it into an outline. But remember to look at that outline copy, the template, so that you build an outline. And we're going to look at some pictures in a minute as well. And then we write the rough draft from that information. There is a point to this. Outlining is not drafting. We are practicing two different things. And the reason we're practicing that, one of the key reasons, is that they require different parts of our brain and how we're thinking about it. So when I'm outlining, I'm using, let me look at a picture here. I'm using like Roman numerals. I'm using letters, I'm using Arabic numerals, I'm using all of these different things to sort of build up an idea. And it helps me have these spaces to put information. Notice that sometimes I start with just the basics, like I have an introduction. I'm going to need that. I'm going to need a conclusion. And other times I start to add, well, my introduction is going to need a catch, like I'm going to need to bring people into what I'm writing. I'm going to need to have a thesis. I'm probably going to want to bring in some process. I'm going to want to explain my ideas. I'm going to want to include quotes. So we start here with just the basics and we grow and we grow and we grow. And then we write a draft, which is much more like this, where we have paragraphs and those are in line together. And the reason we want to look at both of these concepts is that how we respond as writers can sort of make or break that process. So for me, once I write a paragraph, I have a hard time just grabbing this paragraph and moving it. But when I am looking at my outline here, I don't have any problem grabbing my point one and making it point three. So I feel more confident and comfortable moving things around in an outline. That's what we're trying to figure out. Those kinds of questions, those kinds of sort of roadblocks are what I want you to be finding out about yourself. Which parts sort of catch you, which parts increase your skills, which parts help you process ideas more. Maybe you have my hang up, maybe you absolutely don't have that hang up, but that's what we want to know. We want to know it about ourselves. So, outlines and even our draft are ideas, they're possibilities, they're us organizing our thoughts. It means we can reorganize. Outlines and our drafts here are not demands. It's not saying I must do it this way. It's not saying this is now set in stone and that's my thesis and we're done. Nope, nope, nope. It's not the gospel truth here. It's not immutable. It is about that organizational process and saying, okay, well, it could look like that. And then we're taking a break from it when you submit it and you're getting my feedback because we're working on that together. And then you're saying, okay, yes, I do want this, or no, I don't want that. Finally, a good reminder, make sure you're still checking out that library. Keep going with it. I'm here to help you navigate it. Make sure you're finding all of those places. Make sure that if you're stuck, you are booking a librarian, that you are texting them and calling them, because they are amazing, incredible, helpful people. And I want you to develop a relationship where you're comfortable reaching out to them. So remember, you are trialing these things, you're testing them out, you're seeing what you can learn from them, and we are practicing until we get to session 5 where we finalize.